And just like that, 2 years go by and Jonathan Smith era already done at Michigan State. I think it was the right move, but will the next one also be the right move?
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, how on earth are we all doing for a very chaotic Sunday here, which has finally happened for Michigan State? My God, did they waste no time making their decision and announcement on Jonathan Smith's future. Guys, hey, before we get to this all, please rate, review, subscribe, comment below your thoughts on the Jonathan Smith firing. And also, hey, just want to thank you guys for making us your first listen every single day right here at the Locked On Podcast Network. Guys, there was some idiot out there 2 years ago, kind of about this time actually, saying that Jonathan Smith was a great hire for Michigan State. He was one of the best names out there. This is a guy that has built a program that was in the rubble over in Corvallis. And hey, who's to say he can't do the same here in East Lansing? And of course, talking about myself, I'm actually a little surprised it went the way it did here. And overall, my emotions right now, first and foremost, it's nice that we actually have clarity of the situation. It took forever to get to, but overall, I'm not jumping for joy here. I did eventually sell all my stock after that UCLA game, and it never really got much better after that. So yeah, we drew the conclusion that this has to end. And even though it has reached its finality right here, I'm not jumping for joy. Overall, I'm quite bummed. I mean, by all accounts, Jonathan Smith seemed like a great guy. You listen to what the players had to say about him. They were all vouching for him at the end of the season. Just the way that he cares about the people in the locker room, I heard was nothing but top notch. But unfortunately, we are not fans. We are not watching every Saturday. We are not holding out our hopes because it's as nice as Mr. Rogers' neighborhood in the locker room, right? We want to see wins. We want to see development. We don't want to get left any further behind than we already are in the college football landscape. And this is the whole crux of why I think, hey, it's time to go here, because is 2 years long enough to rebuild a program? And that is exactly what he overtook. He had to rebuild Michigan State. We're going to get way more into the situation he inherited here in a little bit later on this show. We got a lot to talk about. But can you rebuild a program in 2 years? Yeah, you can. I think it's safe to say Curt Cignetti did it. Of course, that has been very well storied. But I think largely, no, it's very hard to make a program born again just 2 years in. Now, however, I also think that 2 years is a decent enough amount of time to let people know where things are heading, if anywhere. And it didn't seem like Michigan State was moving anywhere at all. Despite this great 10-point victory over Maryland, right? Woohoo! The writing was already on the wall. And I was out for the last few weeks, right? And you know what? We did a little episode last night, a little reaction to the Maryland game, and we talked about Jonathan Smith, what's going to happen, what I think should happen. And there was a commenter, I went back and read the comments, that said, do you want to explain why you're out on Jonathan Smith, or do you just want things to be your way? Which, yeah, I do want things to be my way. And my way, to be clear about it, is winning games. Especially games that you have fourth quarter leads in, games that you out-talent the other side of the field in. And I know Michigan State's roster wasn't immaculate by any stretch of the imagination, but they were still good enough to get to at least 6 wins this year. My way is having a coach that knows how to use timeouts and manage a clock. And we saw some follies with that throughout the season this year, going back to the Youngstown game. It just kept being a repeated situation of just sloppiness. Not being able to develop the 4-star quarterback, Aiden Childs. That's a huge bummer. My way is also not having your team sleepwalk against homecoming at UCLA. At home against UCLA, I should say. And yes, the team rallied from that. They fought until the bitter end of the season and tried their best, but that was a must-win game, and that was a very inexcusable performance that really never, at least on the scoreboard, got much better up until this Maryland game that just happened. My way is not having special teams line up incorrectly on week 14 like we saw last night at Ford Field for a misalignment penalty. Just every week you can count on special teams somehow shooting themselves in the foot. My way is having recruiting that isn't as stale as a box of saltines that's been left on the counter for 5 months. My way is having a fan base that cares. And that was a damning showing from the fans last night at Ford Field. And I was there. And just like we talked 2 years ago, I was also at Ford Field to watch Michigan State be the sacrificial lamb to Penn State. Everyone knew it. Guess what? There's still enough energy amongst the fan base somehow where Ford Field was sold out 2 years ago. Yesterday, I don't know if it's going to top what the Division 5 state final is going to have in their attendance at Ford Field today. That I'm not knocking our fans. I can see why everyone's as apathetic as possible. You need an energy jolt in this fan base. I'm sorry to make it about that, but it does matter. It matters to recruits, matters to donors, and donors have never been more important in the college football landscape. So yes, I was out. The execution certainly wasn't there throughout the entire season. Sloppiness certainly at times. The lack of identity is what also really gets me. If you want me to power rank every single time out, it's that. It's that we are at the end of year number 2, and we aren't any closer to seeing any identity that Jonathan Smith and co. were trying to implement here. You turn on a game a few years ago, you're watching Oregon State and Corvallis, you're going to see a physical team, a team that can run the ball, a largely disciplined team. You never really got that here. And when I say discipline, I don't mean like, oh, they don't get flagged at all, or, oh, hey, we weren't disciplined because we kept on getting in too many scuffles. No, I'm talking discipline as in, are you lining up correctly? Like, as we're in like week 8, week 9, and we're still hearing about how guys were just not lined up correctly. Okay, well, maybe that's a hard look in the mirror that you have to give yourself. So, I mean, I'm just staring at my notes right now, and I just got Childs highlighted. It's just a massive bummer he couldn't hit his ceiling. That's a top 200 recruit. Your head coach is a quarterback. You bring over the entire offensive staff, seemingly, from Oregon State, and it didn't pan out whatsoever here. And the lack of identity, the lack of the run game, and more so the offensive line, not only did it not improve enough this year, it got even worse than it was last year. And that was a pretty low bar to clear. So, is it all on Jonathan Smith? No, it's not. The offensive line development obviously wasn't there. There's 1,000 different reasons why this all didn't work out. But this could have been a 6+ win season. I know the roster isn't perfect. Again, we are going to talk about why this isn't all like Jonathan Smith's problem. You know, he is a victim of some previous regimes, but he also eats a large slice of this pie. Right? Like Nebraska, who I think now we have a large enough sample size, kind of had a feeling as we were playing Nebraska, but now that many more weeks have happened, you see that Nebraska, it just straight up was not a good team this year in the Big Ten. You have a second half lead against them, you watch that evaporate in front of your eyes. Minnesota, late lead. Okay, you watch that evaporate in front of your eyes. How about the Iowa game? You're up a smooth 10 points in the fourth quarter. Their offense is doing nothing. Oh, man, how could we botch this one? Well, you did. You did. You want to throw the UCLA game in there because I know UCLA looked great against Penn State and then great against Michigan State. That performance still really bothers me on homecoming when you just absolutely needed a win. And the first sign of adversity they found in that game, they just folded up like a dollar store lawn chair. So, no, it's a bummer. Again, seems like a great guy. Players love him. I don't think, he mailed it in or anything like that. I think he was earnestly trying. But yeah, we're going to get into, where I was wrong about all this because, yes, I was one of the biggest cheerleaders of this hire when it did happen a few years ago. I want to talk about, how we did get here, share a little bit of the blame pie, but also we got to talk about, is the next guy just simply Pat Fitzgerald? Is that why the timing was so odd here? But first, you need to talk your ears off about Game Time. That's right, guys. Hey, you know what? We were at the game Saturday night, Game Time. Well, we bought our tickets a few days ahead of time, so we were able to save money with the flash deals that they always have on the app, whether it's football games, whether it's basketball games for this upcoming Michigan State season, baseball games, concerts, comedy shows. Guys, whatever it is, save on flash deals with Game Time. Or, hey, let's say you're just walking up to the stadium 30 minutes ahead of time, you don't got the tickets, still open up the Gametime app. You're going to find last-minute ticket deals right there inside the app. And it's so simple. It's 2 taps on your phone, and boom, they're sent straight to your phone. You don't got to jockey, hit 15 different buttons, be met with a bunch of mystery fees that you never even saw to begin with. No, guys, it's easy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Also, take care of your holiday shopping with Alumni Hall, guys, because, well, they got all the top brands, officially licensed gear that you are looking for. We're talking Nike, we're talking Columbia, Champion, Yeti, New Era, so much more. And whether it's kids or adults, whether you're looking to get some hats, some tailgating gear, whatever it is, guys, Alumni Hall is going to set you up this holiday season for your friends, your family, maybe even yourself. Treat yourself this holiday season, guys. And they're going to treat you too if you're part of the Spartan community, because Michigan State students and faculty, as well as military and all first responders, can get 10% off with a valid ID in the store. On top of all that, you'll want to follow Alumni Hall on social media and download the Alumni Hall app, because that's where you'll find more special offers and sales. So pop into Alumni Hall in the Eastwood Town Center in Lansing near the Apple Store, or shop online or through their app. And best part is, for every $150 you spend, you will get $10 in Hall cash to use for next time. So grab the new game day look or upgrade your tailgate with Alumni Hall, your ultimate Michigan State shopping destination. All right, well, we get some things right in this show, I like to think. Right, guys? The Jonathan Smith thing, clearly not one of them. I thought that, hey, this program could be rebuilt. He did it over at Oregon State. He established an identity. They were able to run the ball physically. And, yeah. Two things that, or I guess the number one thing I'd like to walk back here is just being early on just dismissive of Jonathan Smith's, lack of passion, lack of energy, because we got those complaints very early on last year. And I said, well, that's just who he is, whether you like it or not. I even went back and I watched the Oregon State versus Oregon game when he had that great upset, and he was the same guy, just cool, calm, collected. But eventually, that does matter a little bit, right? Now, whether it's, hey, that's also the energy your team's going to reflect on the field, yeah, sure, that's one thing. Now, of course, he was able to rally the team late in the season, have them still fighting hard. But this is a new age of college football where optics, whether you like it or not, it does matter. So as Michigan State is sliding to a 5, 6, 7, 8 game losing streak, and it's just the same lack of energy, lack of sizzle on the sideline, that gets people pulling themselves away from the program, just a casual fan, or maybe even big-time donors too. And from everything we heard, it wasn't, a great mover and shaker personality when it came to the donors and everything, right? This wasn't a guy like Kenny Dillingham, for example, over at Arizona State, that would fire a fan base up, squeeze some money out of the donors that otherwise wouldn't be there. And that's a bummer that it is a thing now. Jonathan Smith might very well be a coach, but you also have to be a good salesman now. Now, whether that's how you act just in a press conference, on TV as you're coaching a game, or behind closed doors with people that make way more money than I could ever dream, it all matters. We're all asked to do things in our jobs that weren't originally on the job description that later on became there because, well, helps the organization, helps yourself. Being a salesperson is just one of those things that has happened the last few years and not really necessarily there. So that's just one thing that, hey, I definitely got that wrong. It's just being a little too dismissive of, hey, he's cool, calm, collected, not a fiery personality. And I'm not asking the guy to change, but maybe we just make a changing of the guard here, and that's just where we're at right now. I mean, that goes on top of all just the in-game follies, how the run game looks even somehow worse than it did last year, yada, yada, yada. But I do want to mention, how we got here, because I think it would not be fair just to put this all on Jonathan Smith. I mean, not to white knight him, not to make him feel better on the way out as if he's listening to the show, but I also want to add a lot of context too that I think is very relevant, just so we're not all sitting here thinking, wow, Jonathan Smith tanked this entire program. This is all on him. I think many of us are aware of it, but let's just reiterate here, because he gets to Michigan State 2 years ago, and he looks at a roster that has some gaping holes. that were left in it by the previous guy that was here, Mel Tucker. Now, during the Mel Tucker era, there are some positions they just straight up neglected. Defensive line wasn't great necessarily. I think they only recruited 2 linebackers total to Michigan State in Mel Tucker's time here. Now, one of them, Jordan Hall, great. That's awesome. The other one, Quavian Carter, who I don't even know recorded a snap at Michigan State. So they have to spend a lot of resources there. Hey, in the spring, right after Simeon Barrow and Derek Harmon say they're coming back, no, they did a once-over on Michigan State, and they also leave right before the season. Like, you think that did Jonathan Smith a lot of favors? Gino Vandemark, the same thing too. So, look, there was a lot of holes on this roster that he had to inherit, because I know that we all maybe have different memories of how the Mel Tucker era went. Some people just remember that June after the Peach Bowl where it was 5-star and 4-star city on those official visits. Look at us. We got the Goats. We got the Lambos. This is a great time. I think some people also might have a hard time remembering how many of those kids they actually signed to those classes. I mean, there was a class that only had 17 kids in it, and they were scrambling at the end to get 17 kids. When you're trying to fill classes with 23, 24 kids and you're 7 short, well, it might not seem like a big number, but that is a gaping hole that you are leaving. He gave the guy after him, Jonathan Smith, a set of handcuffs right when he walked in. I mean, he was already up against it somehow. So, look, when you're going out to the transfer portal to fill in all these holes that the previous guy left, yeah, I mean, of course they didn't land this massive, great defensive end because they had an X amount of money to spend on receivers, offensive line, defensive line, a brand new secondary room. There was a lot on Jonathan Smith's laundry list that he had to really just shop for. And again, we spent the whole first segment talking about where things went wrong for Jonathan Smith. He is not blameless, of course, but he inherited a fire. I think a bigger mess than a lot of people realize. Yeah, Mel Tucker. Oh, great. Hey, he got some 4-stars here. He also whiffed on a lot of those. And even some 4-stars that did commit here did not live up to that 4-star billing whatsoever. By Job, for example, not to, throw stray at him. He's a backup at Miami of Ohio now. Like Andrew DePape, I don't even know if he played more than 30 snaps as a 3rd-string guy at Indiana. So even like the big names that they did get largely didn't pan out. And I think that we've been able to see that on the field the last few seasons here in East Lansing. So, yeah. And I'll tell you what also didn't help here. The firing. I mean, not the firing. The firing didn't help his career either. The investigation and the NCAA penalties and all of that fun. Do I think the penalties were that severe? Obviously, taking away wins is no fun, but it's not like they were bowl season wins or anything. And yes, you do have to scale back recruiting weeks, a few weeks here and there for the next few years, but Michigan State has bigger issues on the recruiting trail than just missing a few weeks. So we'll see what it means for the next guy. And let's talk about who that next guy could be, because there is a name that keeps getting floated around there. And that is just a fascinating next chapter for Michigan State football, because it kind of just seems like a foregone conclusion that it's going to be Pat Fitzgerald. Let's talk about that, though, guys. But, hey, before we get into all of that, need to talk your ears off about Omaha Steaks. That's right, guys. Hey, it's the holiday season, and it feels a little easier when you already know the perfect gift, and Omaha Steaks makes it almost too simple. Whether you're treating yourself this season or sending something memorable to family and friends, Omaha Steaks delivers handcrafted perfection right to their door. And this week, it's the best time to jump in because their cyber sale is here, and the deals are huge. The quality? It's exactly what you are looking for. Incredibly tender steaks, rich flavor, and the meals make hosting or just maybe even having your own weekday meal a lot easier. It's simple as Omaha Steaks, guys. Save big on unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during their cyber sale. And for an additional $35 off, use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com. Promo code COLLEGE. Terms apply. See site for details. It really seems like Pat Fitzgerald is the guy getting the most buzz here, and that could be for a few reasons. Is it just the same rumor being regurgitated over and over and over again in this endless loop of rumor mills? Sure, possibly. Or is it just making a conclusion based on all available information because of how strange the timing of all this was, right? That's why I have to think it's Pat Fitzgerald. And I was talking about this not too long ago on this show. And this is no inside information. This is just connecting the dots here, because it's not like, oh, they're waiting to see how Jonathan Smith did against Maryland to decide his fate. Like, no, you weren't going to see anything in that Maryland game or the Iowa game, or maybe even a few games before that you already didn't know about this staff and where things were going, right? I think that they had their minds made up possibly a few weeks ago. I'm going to guess, we'll call it after the Michigan game, maybe after the Minnesota game. Who's to say? Doesn't really matter. All other programs are making their announcements, whether it was keeping guys like Wisconsin and Luke Fickell, Maryland and Mike Loxley, Florida State and Mike Norvell, of course, or programs that said goodbye to their coach earlier on the season, right? Penn State, Oklahoma State, Virginia Tech, Arkansas, Florida. You guys get my point. Why was Michigan State, even though it seemed like a foregone conclusion, staying mum on things, not getting out there, not already doing their vetting process with other coaches that are already head coaches? Why are they just kind of sitting on the sidelines? The only conclusion that I am able to draw, that I think other people are able to draw, is that, oh, it's a guy that's not currently a head coach, that might not have other programs going after him right now, but would still be a pretty good fit both in conference and regional. A guy that might be taking a friendlier deal. I'm not sure what it's going to end up being, but golly gee willikers, doesn't it really seem like the only logical conclusion is either A, it's going to be Pat Fitzgerald, a coach that no one else is really after, that you've already maybe had communication with, or the other option is that you're just straight up incompetent. And you did just join this whole party way too late, and you are getting started on the starting line when all other programs in this marathon are already at the 24-mile mark. So it had to have been one of those two. So maybe it's just like, I'm hoping they have a plan here. It certainly seems like, as these rumors are becoming maybe just not rumors based on, who you want to listen to and who you want to hear from. But yeah, during the whole genesis of this earlier in the week of why has there been so much silence, it's probably Pat Fitzgerald. Like that is my guess. I mean, now could it be someone else? I mean, who else is out there? That's the issue when you get into this so late in the game, right? I mean, Bob Chesney from James Madison has been rumored that he's going to go to UCLA since, my God, Halloween, it seems like. Jason Eck out of New Mexico. I wouldn't hate that one whatsoever. But outside of that, I don't think they're going to go the coordinator route. I don't think they're going to go the Brian Hartline route. For example, do you get a guy that's just hanging out at Barstool right now, like John Gruden? I don't know. Like, very limited pool of candidates when you get into it this late. But I'm going to assume that things have already been in motion here, because that's the only thing that could possibly even make sense. How does Pat Fitzgerald make sense here, though? Because if it turns out to be Pat Fitzgerald, I can talk myself into it, of course. But if you want me to rate this on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being I absolutely hate it, I would have rather they rehired Mel Tucker instead of this guy, and 10 being like, you hire Dan Campbell or or some great football coach. You get my point here. I would grade Pat Fitzgerald at probably his actual career win percentage, which is pretty much 500. I'd dot this down at a 5 out of 10, I think. And there's already some passionate conversation going on amongst the Michigan State fan base, because, again, this is a name that just keeps on getting bounced around over and over again, especially on this Sunday here as we record. But let's give the quick skinny here for Pat Fitzgerald, 50 years old, obviously played at Northwestern, coached at Northwestern for 17 years. He did go 110 and 101 overall in those 17 years. He went to 10 bowl games with the bowl game record of 5-5, if that even means anything to you. Now, it was a stumble to the finish line here because, well, he did deliver 3 10-win seasons. He had a few 9-win seasons in there too, of course. The last few years for Northwestern under Pat Fitzgerald, not great shakes. He went 3-9 in 2021, and then 2022, 1-11. And then, of course, got accused of knowing about this hazing ritual at Northwestern. Fast forward a few months, years, however long that all took. He reached a settlement with Northwestern. He said he feels 100% vindicated and all the facts are out there. So sure, I guess you could call it there be baggage coming in. I don't necessarily subscribe to that entirely. I'm sure that the friendly Detroit media won't rake him over the coals for that, something that he's probably exonerated in. Certainly won't happen here. But he went through it all. He came out. He was satisfied with the result. So we could have that discussion, and I'm sure we will, in the next few days or weeks, should he be hired. But I am more so curious about the on-the-field production here. Like, there's no doubt that he's like a solid coach. I think the people that say, oh, that's actually very impressive that he got over 500, went to 10 bowl games, had 3 10-win seasons at Northwestern. They had that fun little COVID season 2 where they went 7-2. And he did it at Northwestern, a place that is so behind the 8 ball in the Big Ten in resources, in branding, this, and that. Yeah, no, I think that there is a lot of validity to that. And I also do think that, look, 2021, he goes 3-9. 2022, he goes 1-11. Those are also the start of the transfer portal era. And I don't necessarily think, and I could be wrong here, but just shooting from the hip here, I don't necessarily think Northwestern maybe was as strapped for football or like was just balling out with football cash as maybe some other programs. I think the Northwestern, kind of one of those programs, not set up for success in the transfer portal era, especially early on when everyone was still trying to figure it out. That's not to absolve him completely. Like, I'll have to go back, look at those seasons, see where things really went wrong. But just, hanging out in a blimp right now, 30,000 feet above those seasons, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to stink in this era because that's how the era started for him in Northwestern. I think there's a good football coach in there. Obviously, I'm very fascinated to see what the support staff would be. If it is Pat Fitzgerald, do you bring Max Bola home as a defensive coordinator? Is there any shot to keep Joe Rossi around as a defensive coordinator? I'm not sure. But, man, it just doesn't it seem like it is Pat Fitzgerald, which right now the fan base seems pretty split on. On one hand, okay, great, the guy was 500 in the Big Ten at Northwestern. Whoop-de-doo. Oh, great, he went to 10 bowl games. Okay, but on the other half, wow, yeah, he was 500 at Northwestern. He did provide stability to a program that otherwise would be a constant bottom feeder in the conference. Kind of like what we've been doing the last few years, guys. I don't think it's that crazy to drag a guy in here that has nearly 2 decades of coaching experience in the Big Ten, winning experience, stability, if you will, and just turning it over to him. I just don't think that this could have gone any longer with Jonathan Smith, personally. Now, is Pat Fitzgerald my first guy? No, I'm more of the Bob Chesney flavor. I would have liked Alex Golesh, who, by the way, yesterday, I thought he was already guaranteed at Arkansas. It turns out, no, Auburn got him, so good on them. Just wanted to correct that from yesterday. But yeah, I could talk myself into it being better than what we just witnessed. How much better? Well, that is to be determined here. But, guys, here we are. Finally happened. We're on to the next chapter. That was fast. That was a quick 2 years that we're not going to get back. I'm reading the YouTube comments right now. Steve writes in, why not Lane Kiffin? LMAO. What a masterclass in PR work Lane Kiffin had here. I know this isn't Locked On Rebels, but I'm just fascinated with the whole Lane Kiffin thing. First, he turns a reporter into a villain for eventually having what turned out to be the most correct statement of all time, in that you can't turn a hoe into a housewife. And Lane Kiffin had issue with that. Okay, good. Step 1. I'm going to let the Ole Miss fan base know that I'm going to make this guy the villain right here before I leave. Don't get them upset at me. It's this guy who turned out to be spot on about his predictions. Step 2. After the game, I'm going to say that I'm calling Nick Saban and Pete Carroll to help me make my decision so fans can hopefully get a little bit upset at them for the reason I'm going to LSU. I'm also going to say that I'm going to pray on this. Oh, you guys are going to be upset at me for going to Baton Rouge right before the college football playoff after your best season in Ole Miss history? Well, don't take it up with me. Take it up with Jesus Christ himself. That's right. If Nick Saban wasn't good enough for you, Pete Carroll wasn't enough to yell at, hey, I prayed on this. You can't be mad at me. And then his latest stunt today of holding his staff hostage, holding Ole Miss hostage, saying, hey, I better be able to coach the college football playoff or I'm taking my whole staff with me, as if that's just how things work in college football. So why not Lane Kiffin? He's a good coach. He's a great coach. I would probably take Lane Kiffin, but what a circus that you'd be inheriting. I just had to applaud Lane Kiffin for that brilliant PR masterclass that he put on all day Friday, going into Saturday and now Sunday. So there we go. Guys, we got a lot to talk about, and we're going to be talking a lot this week here in Locked On Spartans. Signing day is 3 days away. What happens there? Has Pat Fitzgerald been calling these kids on the side? Has whoever the next head coach been doing any of this? So we got a lot to talk about. Who's going to be the next guy? Will it be Pat Fitzgerald? We're also going to have some news later this week that will probably be a direct, if I could talk, a direct, I swear I haven't drank today, a direct reflection of where Michigan State possibly even got the $33 million to let Jonathan Smith go. I think there's going to be a lot of news this week, guys. And in the middle of all that, basketball plays on Tuesday against Iowa. We got Duke coming up on Saturday. This is going to be a packed week. You will be able to find all things green and white right here, Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white. I was going to say 5 days a week. We could be doing 10 episodes next week. I got no idea. I am going to be chained inside of this little closet studio I've built for myself. I will have my wife slip in a slice of bread under the door every few hours to keep myself nourished. But until then, guys, take care of yourselves. Love you all. Bummed it didn't work out for Jonathan Smith. But if not for nothing else, he gets $33 million to dry those tears with. All right, guys. Next time. Love you all. Go green.